Hello, it is Saturday is it the 19th of December?
Yeah.
Saturday the 19th of December. It is lunchtime and it's the final weekend of Christmas Stories because next week is next time, this will be Boxing Day next week, won't it? So we'll have had Christmas Day. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So we've got the final Christmas Stories. So tomorrow we've got we've got the night before Christmas, the night before Christmas, and the night after Christmas. And I think we've also got Peppa Pig's night before Christmas as well. So we're all about the night before Christmas tomorrow. And obviously everything today is Christmas related. We have got a lovely little book, some quite short ones today. So we've got Sam Usher Snow. That's a little shorty. We have got one that neither of us have read, but it's a very pretty book called Ollie's Christmas Reindeer, is it? Ollie's Christmas Reindeer. And I thought, I had a little flick through it because I thought Ollie was going to be a boy, but Ollie is a girl. So I think for the purposes of this, we'll make it Molly's Christmas Reindeer. Because even if we put a mo in front of it, it's even your spelling. Because we never find things with your spelling on it. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, that's going to be Molly's Christmas Reindeer. And the timeless classic, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or what we know in the film as just The Grinch. So we got The Grinch, and myself and Molly, well, I woke up super early this morning. I was still thinking about work, so I was up at just before 6 o'clock this morning. And then after I'd done a bit of work, I settled down to start watching my favourite. Anybody that knows me, kind of Christmas in my head doesn't start until I've watched A Christmas Carol. And my favourite film version of A Christmas Carol is the one that's simply called Scrooge. Much as I like lots of the films, even like Scrooged, but my favourite version of it is an Albert Finney 1970 version. Which is a singing and dancing one. And then so about 5 minutes in, Molly came downstairs, she woke up, and so we went back to the beginning, and so we both, it was the most perfect morning. We had no, we didn't have hot chocolates, that was a lie. I had a cup of tea and you had a drink. And we sat and watched Scrooge, which was lovely. So in celebration of that, we're not going to have the whole of this, because when you look at it, it's really long. You probably see it's lovely pictures. It's the illustrator on this one is a chap called Christian Bellingham, who does lovely pictures. They're almost like works of art. But you can see that that's an awful lot of words, and you'd be here for hours if I read all of that. So all we're actually going to read is the nice bit at the end, which I think is called the end of it. So we're going to read chapter 5 of that. So we're only about 10 minutes of that, but we'll have the kind of like the rest of that.
Yeah, and just now we put on some tattoos.
Oh yeah, no, we put on some tattoos. So kind of like, well, let's make out that we've just been to the tattoo parlour. So we've just been to the tattoo parlour, and after an hour of really hard kind of like tattooing, I got this Usain Bolt Father Christmas kind of like. And Molly, if I turn it round, Molly, you are like the tattooed lady here. Hang on, where?
Wait,
Hang
there
on,
one.
focus in. So what does that say?
Winter friendly.
Winter friendly, right?
Then
Okay.
goes on the back.
And then we got. Is that holly?
Yeah, holly.
Holly.
Then
That's a penguin.
Snowman.
Snowman's coming off a bit. One of them we took off last night because it was hurting, wasn't it? You put it right on the kind of like the inside of your elbow. Hang on, I didn't catch all of those ones. So we got
Polar bear,
Santa,
an
elf. I like the elf.
One on the back.
I don't know what that is.
A polar bear in
I don't know.
cup
Polar
of
bear
tea.
with glasses, right? Okay.
Yeah, and I actually.
And you've even got leg ones, right? Okay.
Wait, there's a
Look
two.
at that. What's that? Little rabbits on a
Yeah,
sledge,
rabbits.
is it? Or scarves? And I like the one at the bottom. Give us the one at the bottom.
That's the same as the polar bear one.
Oh right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I've
And was
got
there one on the other leg, was there?
Right, there. Can you see that?
Hang on.
Oh, no.
Let's turn it around that way. and Holly. So you are, look at that. The tattooed lady. And obviously we got antlers on today as well. Nice work. Right, shall we crack on? Right, because we've obviously got the toys out here. We've got hot chocolates. Molly's got some gingerbread men biscuits. I've got a rather... It probably doesn't look anything kind of like sort of too special, but I've got it in Aldi. It's the most wonderful thing. It was sort of gingerbread cookies, like crushed up gingerbread cookie with white chocolate and meringue and bits of marshmallow as well. It's glorious. It's glorious. Right. Should we start with a Christmas Carol? I think let's start with a Christmas Carol. So we're going to jump straight to, like I say, we're going to jump straight to chapter 5. So everything that's happened is Mr. Scrooge is horrible and he's grumpy and he's miserable and he's very mean and miserly, and his old business partner Jacob Marley, who's a ghost, and he's died something like 10 years before, so he kind of comes along as a ghost and says, "You've got to change your ways, Scrooge. You will be visited by 3 ghosts: the ghost of Christmas
Past.
the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost
Future.
of Christmas future." And so they all show him his past, his present and his future, and this is what happens. He's woken up the following kind of like morning and it's still Christmas Eve. It's Christmas. It's the morning of Christmas Day, and see if he's been redeemed. So this one's called The End of It. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own, to make amends in. "I will live in the past, the present and the future," Scrooge repeated as he scrambled out of bed. "The spirits of all 3 shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob." He was so fluttered with his good intentions that he could barely speak. He'd been sobbing violently in the conflict with the spirit, and his face was wet with tears. "They're not torn down," cried Scrooge, folding one of his bed curtains in his arms. "They're here. I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may have be dispelled. They will be. I know they will." His agitation was so great, he hopped about, putting his clothes on inside and upside down. "I don't care what to do. I don't know what to do," cried Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath. "I'm as light as a feather, as happy as an angel, as merry as a schoolboy. A Merry Christmas to everybody. Hello there! Whoop! Hello!" He frisked into the sitting room. "There's the saucepan the gruel was in," cried Scrooge, going round the fireplace. "There's the door by which the ghost of Jacob Marley entered. There's the corner whence the ghost of Christmas present sat. It all happened. Ha, ha, ha." For a man who'd been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid laugh. "I don't know what day of the month it is," said Scrooge. "I don't know how long I've been among the spirits. I'm quite a baby. Never mind, I don't care. Hello, whoop, hello there." He was checked at his transports by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals he'd ever heard. Clash, clang, hammer, ding, dong, bell, dell, ding, dong, hammer, clang, clash. Oh, glorious, glorious. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, clear, stirring cold, golden sunlight, sweet air, glorious. "What's today?" cried Scrooge, calling down to a boy below. "Today?" replied the boy. "Why, Christmas Day." "It's Christmas Day," said Scrooge to himself. "I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. Of course, they can do anything they like. Hello," he called to the boy. "Do you know the poulterers on the corner?" "I should hope I did," replied the lad. "An intelligent boy," said Scrooge. "Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging there?" "It's hanging there now," replied the boy. "Go and buy it for me," said Scrooge. "Tell them to bring it here, so I may give them directions where to take it. Come back with the man, and I'll give you a shilling. Come back in less than 5 minutes, and I'll give you half a crown." The boy was off like a shot. "I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's," whispered Scrooge, laughing. "He shan't know who sent it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim." The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady one, but write it he did, and went downstairs to wait for the poulterer's man. As he stood there, the knocker caught his eye. I shall love it as long as I live, cried Scrooge, patting it with his hand. I never looked at it before. What an honest expression it has on his face. And here's the turkey. Hello, Whoop, how are you? Merry Christmas. It was a turkey. He could never have stood upon his legs, that bird. He would have snapped 'em off short in a minute, like 6 sticks of sealing wax. Why, it's impossible to carry that to Cratchit, said Scrooge. You must have a cab. The chuckle with which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab, and the chuckle with which he recompensed the boy were only exceeded by the chuckle with which he sat down breathless in his chair again, and chuckled till he cried. He dressed himself all in his best, and went out into the streets. The people were pouring forth as he'd seen them with the ghost of Christmas present. Walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile. He'd not gone far when he beheld the gentleman who'd walked into his counting-house the day before and said, Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Dear sir, Scrooge said, taking the gentleman by both his hands, I hope you succeeded yesterday. A Merry Christmas to you. Mr. Scrooge? Yes, said Scrooge. Allow me to ask your pardon. And will you have the goodness... Here, Scrooge whispered in his ears. My dear Mr. Scrooge, cried the gentleman, are you serious? Not a farthing less, said Scrooge. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. I don't know what to say to such generosity, said the other, shaking his head. Don't say anything, Scrooge returned. I'm much obliged to you. Bless you. He went to church and walked about the streets and watched people hurrying about and patted children on the head. He'd never dreamt that any walk, that anything, could give him so much happiness. In the afternoon he turned towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to knock, but knock he did. Is your master home? Said Scrooge to the girl. Nice girl. Yes, sir, she answered. He's in the dining room along with mistress. I'll show you in. Thank ye. He knows me, said Scrooge with his hand already on the dining room lock. I'll go in here. He turned it gently and sidled his face in round the door. Fred, said Scrooge. Why, bless my soul, cried Fred. Who's that? It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I've come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred? My, how his niece by marriage started. Let him in. It's a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office next morning. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late, that was what he'd set his heart upon. And he did it. The clock struck 9. No Bob. He was a full 18 minutes behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door open so he might see him come into the tank. Poor Bob was in the door and on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen. Hello, growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice. What do you mean by coming here at this time? I'm very sorry, sir, pleaded Bob. It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday. I'll tell you what, my friend, said Scrooge. I'm not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer, and therefore, he continued, leaping from his stool, I'm about to raise your salary. Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down with it, holding him up and calling people in the court for help and a straitjacket. A Merry Christmas, Bob, said Scrooge with an earnestness that could not be mistaken, as he clapped him on the back. A merrier Christmas than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavour to assist your struggling family, Bob. Make up the fires and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all, and infinitely more, and to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh, and a little heeded them. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of all of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one. There. It would have been a bit long to do the whole of the story, but it's beautiful, beautiful pictures, isn't it? Let's have a look through some of So that's the kind of like the first. So that was the kind of like that. It was an old lady in the version we saw, wasn't it? The kind of like the first spirit, and then the second spirit. What did it look like in this book?
Oh yeah, like big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the one in the one we saw, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then I think probably the third spirit is generally it's yeah, almost a bit looks a bit like Voldemort. Are they going to have pictures of that? No, maybe they're not. The last of the spirits. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not going to show. Not going to show a picture. No.
Oh,
It's
that's the
generally,
skeleton.
it's kind of like, yes, it's generally a kind of like, it's a little bit creepy. Right, beautiful looking book though. Right, let me pop that up there a moment. Right, let's do a couple of shorties and then we'll finish off with the Grinch. Yeah, have a gingerbread man. I'm gonna have a bite of mine.
Oh, can you take the lid off?
It's true, yeah. That's not cooling it down, having your solar panel on the top. Oh, it's chewier than I can remember. Right. Snow. Quite a short one, but a cute one. When I woke up this morning, it was snowing. I couldn't wait to go to the park. Do you think it's so? We still got a week. We're still a week and a bit away from Christmas. Might get snow. That'd be exciting. After this rubbish year, wouldn't it be lush to get snow?
7 or 6 days. I'm trying to think of my advent
It's a bit
calendar.
more than that.
5.
So it's it's Saturday today.
No, until Christmas
Till
Day.
Christmas, be 6 days.
Christmas Day, yeah.
6 days. All I needed to do was dress, wash, put my shoes on, and get Grandad. We had to get outside in the snow before anyone else. I totally get that. That's when you go out in the snow, you want to be the first one out there. It's nothing quite like it. I was ready to go, but Grandad wasn't. I said, "Don't forget the snow," and he said, "Don't forget your scarf." But he's wanting to get out there, so we weren't quick enough to be first. Oh, look, so that little girl goes across first. Grandad was taking ages, so I shouted, "All the others will get there first, Grandad. Don't forget the snow." And Grandad said, "Don't forget your hat." So we weren't quick enough to go with my friends. They were on skis. Crikey, that's quite impressive. Grandad was taking absolutely ages, so I shouted, "Hurry up, Grandad!" And he said, "It's okay, we're not going to miss the fun." But we were. I told him all the cats and dogs were out there. And so, all the cats and dogs had gone running by. Grandad laughed and said the whole zoo was probably out there. And then I saw something. Well, a monkey. That's quite unlikely. But yeah. Well, maybe that was true. Maybe the whole... I did. So yeah, I kind of really did see a monkey going by. Finally, Grandad was ready and we were off to the park, where I could have fun with everyone at last. So it's throwing snowball time. We played all the games you can play in the snow. And so there is a monkey there and there is an elephant there. So they're absolutely right. Oh, and an ostrich. And an ostrich. So the zoo did arrive ahead of him. Grandad won the snowball fight by 6 slushings to 4. He's done well, really, because the giraffe won as well. It's kind of... yeah, it doesn't seem like particularly fair sides. So it's a monkey, a little boy, and a penguin.
And they even made the snowman so they could hide behind it.
Yeah, no, I don't think we kind of... Well, I think Grandad did well there to win that snowball fight. So I think he had fun too. Yeah, winner, chicken dinner. Back at home, Grandad and I agreed some things are definitely worth waiting for. Hope it snows again tomorrow. And I hope it snows this time next week, because we haven't got to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so the snow I always think is lovely if you haven't got to go anywhere. It's a bit of a pain if you've got to drive somewhere.
Yeah, I've only like had a
Do you remember when we slipped in the car? That was the scariest time when we went all the way down the hill.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, how I didn't hit anything was amazing.
that stupid green car. Was...
Yeah. No, it's you know, I needed a proper drink after that. Right, Ollie's Christmas reindeer. This is so sorry. It's now Molly's Christmas reindeer. Because that could be you. You've got an outfit exactly
Yeah,
like that.
I do.
So yeah, no, I think we need to imagine a M up there. This has got. This is almost like a kind of advent calendar. It's got cutout bits on the pictures. So, it was Christmas Eve, and Molly had just gone to sleep when, jingle, 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 she woke again with a start. What was that sound? She rushed to the window, but all she could see was a blanket of fresh snow. See, look, it's got a little hole there for the window. She rushed to the window, but all she could see was a blanket of fresh snow, and grabbing her sledge, she ran downstairs and stepped out into the wintry night. Laughing aloud, Molly jumped up to catch a falling snowflake when she heard the magical sound again. Jingle, jingle, jingle. She had to follow it. Whoosh! Racing down the hill, she heard the ringing again. Jingle, jingle, jingle. And this time, it was much clearer.
It looks like the house there is because it's got like that thing from the other side. It looks like it's falling apart or something.
Oh, right, does it? Oh, right, okay.
Falling apart.
It's supposed to look cute. It's not supposed to look like it's falling apart. As the wind whistled and the trees shook, the bells got louder. Jingle, jingle, jingle. Ollie was getting close. Molly was getting close, sorry. She took a deep breath and, feeling very brave, she ran into the darkness. Has that got a hole in it as well? Yeah, right. Does that look like it's falling apart? Those trees? No, a little bit. There, hanging from a branch, was a collar circled with silver bells. Who could it belong to? Then came a new sound. Crunch, crunch, crunch. A reindeer stepped through the crisp snow towards Molly. Hello, she whispered, not quite believing her eyes. Are you looking for this? The reindeer knelt down patiently while Molly fastened his collar. Then he lowered himself even further. Molly knew exactly what to do and clambered onto his back. She wondered if they could go for a ride through the forest, but to her surprise, they soared up into the night sky, leaving the trees far below. It's a bit like the snowman. They travelled over snow-covered lands and seas glittering in the moonlight. As they journeyed on, Molly shivered, and the reindeer knew there was one last place he should take her. It's pretty, isn't it, with all the silver bits? Mm-hmm. The new friends landed softly in the snow. Thank you, Molly whispered. They didn't want to part, but there was someone very special who needed the reindeer's help that night. So, yawning sleepily, Molly crept back to her room. And was soon dreaming of her magical journey. Jingle, jingle, jingle. This time, the silver bells didn't wake Molly. Right, can you see it over the window? As her reindeer flew through the night sky once more, pulling Santa's sleigh. In the morning, Molly found her presents. Now she would always think of her new friend. See you next year, she whispered. Pretty book. And that was Molly's Christmas Reindeer by Nicola Killen. Right, let's finish off today. How are we doing for time?
It's 24.
24. Right, let us finish it. Do you need a slurp of drink?
Okay.
I'll hold that. You have a slurp of drink. Do you need a biscuit? You need a gingerbread man biscuit?
Mm-hmm.
Grab yourself a bicky. Particularly crunchy. Yeah.
I'm gonna break it.
Particularly crunchy. I'm gonna have a bite of mine.
There you go.
Okay. Right. Nobody wants to watch me eating. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It says, Dr. Seuss makes reading fun. Does he make reading fun? For you? Yeah. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew.
Wait, by the way, I'm just going to say, maybe next week, just because we're reading the Grinch, we may, I might bring down the picture that I drew of the Grinch.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah.
With the Christmas hat on.
Cracking idea. Cracking idea. All the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh the noise, noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing and they'd sing and they'd sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. I'm happy about it. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, get up! And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out at the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side, so I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head and he got her a drink and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1:15 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh-pooh" to the Who's, he was grinchishly humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a moment or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry at boo-hoo." "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came, somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he, himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. And I think that's what we've all realised this year. There's more things in life that are important than material things. It's family and people, and those are the things that I think that we've all missed this year. So it's a bye-bye from me. I am going to flip this round and we'll have a bye-bye from young Rudolph here.
Bye.
And we'll be back tomorrow for our final one. Molly will show her Grinch picture, and we'll have all of the night before Christmas, Peppa's night before Christmas, the night before Christmas,
And the night after Christmas.
and the night after Christmas. Cool. So we'll be back tomorrow. Okay, have a good day, everybody.